So I still draw the angles for these. You don't have to because it doesn't say to, and also it's going to be multiple choice, but just so that I have a visual. So 7 pi over 6 would be in the third quadrant. It's going to look like that. So you would add on one rotation, 2 pi would be 12/6. So you're going to add that on and then subtract it. So it's going to be 19 pi over 6 for the positive one. And then subtracting, you would get 5 pi over 6. You just want to put a negative in front of it just to like show that you went backwards. And then this is the same thing except in degrees. Again, I'm still going to draw it. If you go backwards 95 degrees, that's going to put you in the third quadrant, kind of just barely, like 90 and a little bit past it. So I'm going to do 360 minus 95. So bless you. So 265 going forwards is going to be my positive angle. And then if I add them, and then put a negative in front of it. So if I go backwards a whole rotation and then another 95, that's going to be my negative coterminal angle. So for 3 and 4, it's just name that quadrant. The little acronym for that was the all students take calculus. If that doesn't help you, then don't use that. But they're all positive in quadrant 1. In quadrant 2, it's sine and then also cosecant. They're reciprocals. Those are the two that go together. T stands for what? Tangent, so then cotangent, and then this is cosine, and so then also secant. So when you look at this one, it says sine is negative. That means it can't be the first quadrant because they're all positive there. So we've narrowed it down. And then secant is positive. Secant and cosine go together, so it would be quadrant 4. For these, if you get stuck though, there's only 4 quadrants, so you just take a guess. All right, for this one, it says cotangent is negative. Again, that rules out quadrant 1. Sine is positive. So out of these ones, sine is positive in what quadrant? 2. Okay. What is the reference angle for 135? You don't have to draw it, but you can. 135 would be in the second quadrant. Your reference angle is this part. So how much is that? It's 45. All right. And these ones, you don't really need to draw it. If it's radians, remember the denominator just matches. So this one would be pi over 3. I like the radians better because you just make it match. All right, in my opinion, 7 and 8 are like the 2 hardest ones on here. First, you have to figure out what quadrant you're in. So this says cosine is negative. That means it can't be quadrant 1. So they're all positive there. And then tangent is a positive value. Do you see how tangent is 12/5? All right. So which quadrant is tangent positive in? 3. Okay, so we've figured out that we're in quadrant 3. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the -5 goes there. Hypotenuse is 13. By definition, the hypotenuse is not going to be negative. The negatives go with the x's and y's depending on which quadrant you're in. And then it says tangent is 12 over 5. It's going to be -12 over -5, though the negatives cancel. And that's one of your locker combination ones, 5, 12, 13. But that is like your work. Then you go and answer the question. We want sine. So using your SOHCAHTOA, sine is what over what? Yeah, good. So that would be -12 over 13. Your work is always a triangle, and then you just answer the question. All right, now this one, you're just flat out told it's quadrant 3, which is kind of nice. Like you don't have to fight for that. It's just, oh, quadrant 3. Now this is what I think is tough about this one. It says cosecant is -5. I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite that here real quick. It means it's -5 over 1. But I don't know if the 5 gets the negative or if the 1 gets the negative. We have to just wait and see. Okay. Did anyone make it that far, like putting a 1 in there? If you did, that's impressive and I'm proud of you. Right? Realizing that there's a 1 in there. Cosecant is the reciprocal of which one? Sine. Good. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this is going to be hypotenuse over opposite. So that's how they get placed. And then which one gets the negative? Now, unfortunately, unlike this one where they were all nice whole numbers, this is not going to be a nice whole number. You have to do Pythagorean theorem to get that side. I'm just going to call it X. You can call it A or B, you know, whatever you want. But you guys are good at Pythagorean theorem, so I'm not going to kind of like labor over this. It'll be X squared plus 1 equals 25. X squared equals 24. And then you do have to split that. So what are two numbers that'll multiply to be 24, but one of them's got to be something you could square root? Yeah, good, perfect. And so that will be 2 square root of 6. However, even after all that, it's not actually 2 square root of 6. It is negative 2 square root of 6 because you're in the third quadrant. Like I said, I think 7 and 8 are the two hardest problems on here. All right, but anyway, that is your work. You've created a triangle. Then you answer the question. Cotangent is the reciprocal of which one? Tangent, good. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So cotangent would be adjacent over opposite. It's negative 2 square root of 6 over negative 1. And then what's going to happen to that? Yeah, like those cancel. It's just going to be positive 2 square root of 6. Again, I think that's arguably the hardest one. All right, here we're converting. What are you going to multiply by to turn degrees into radians? Yeah, good. Pi over 180. I took it easy on you. This is a simple one because the zeros are going to cancel. That gives you 34 pi over 18. And what will those both divide by? 2. So what is that? 17 pi over 9. Cool. Which comes out to whatever it comes out to. All right, and then to go backwards the other way, you're going to multiply 180 over pi. Again, you almost kind of can't mess it up because otherwise, like the pi's or the degrees won't cancel. All right, I would not do 5 times 180. I would leave the 5 there. And then what did I tell you to do with these, like as a side problem? Yeah, like divide it by 12 because then it's going to keep your numbers smaller. So what is it? I'm getting 15. Is that, okay, head's nodding. I'll take it. All right, so that's 15. And then just do 5 times 15 to 75. And I even wrote degrees, so you don't really even need the degree symbol. And then these last two are your little formulas. For your arc length, you just multiply them together. But I need to do what with this 40 degrees? Yeah, perfect. Okay, and again, I took it easy on you. I made it with a 0 at the end so that those will cancel. That's 4 pi over 18, which would be 2 pi over 9. Okay, so your arc length is going to be 6 times 2 pi over 9. You just multiply them together. If it helps you to put the 6 over 1, I have found over the years that helps a lot of people. Just do that. You multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. So that would be 12 pi over 9. And oh gosh, what is that going to be? 4 pi over 3. And then units are meters. And then do you remember the formula for area? I just gave back the quiz. You guys did well. Yep, good. 1/2 radius squared. What is our radius? 4 squared times the angle. And I put it in radians for you because I feel like if you remember that formula, I'm just going to give it to you. Then you just got to sort through that. So 4 squared, 16, half of that, 8. I'm going to write it as 8 over 1. Again, don't be too proud to write that out. You're going to be sad if you miss it. And then just multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. So what would that be? 24 pi over 4, which would be 6 pi. And then what are the units for an area? Yeah, yards squared. That's a large circle. Square yards. I should say lots of pi. All right. So for these, disclaimer, on here, I have it find all 6 trig functions. On the test, I think I have one that says find all six. I don't know, I can't remember because I can't remember everything in the world. But sometimes I'll just ask you for a few of them. Like I'll say, give me sine, secant, and cotangent. People find it more difficult to just pull those ones out. So you can always write out all six and then just put on the answer lines the ones I asked you for. Do you get what I'm saying? Because sometimes it's easier to do the whole thing than just pieces of it. That's my 2 cents on it, right? So first, let's figure out what quadrant we're in. It says cosine is negative. That means it can't be quadrant 1. But cotangent is a positive value. So where is cotangent positive? I think I heard somebody back there say, what was that? 3, good. So draw your triangle in quadrant 3. And again, if you get stuck, there's only 4 quadrants, pick one. These aren't multiple choice, so I can do partial credit for you. If you keep on going, if you write anything that's correct, I'll give you something. All right, cotangent is the reciprocal of which one? Tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so this is going to be adjacent over opposite. And then what? Because we're in quadrant 3, so they're both negative. The reason that's written as a positive value is because the negatives canceled out. All right, and then we're going to do Pythagorean theorem to get the hypotenuse. And I'm going to call it R just because if you go the whole way around, it's the radius of a circle. So that's typically what we call it. You can call it X. You can call it C. Some people are used to that from A, B, and C. You call it whatever you want, right? As long as you get the right answer, it doesn't matter what you're calling it. But I'm getting square root of 29. Is that what you guys are seeing there as well? That doesn't split, so which is actually great because it's less work. Just leave it alone. And on the test, it will be printed for you. Unfortunately, you are going to have to write them here, but you'll be okay. Actually, the more you write them, the more likely it is you'll remember which 2 go side by side. So it's good for you. You're only going to have to do it 3 times for 13, 14, and 15. So I promise you're going to be okay. So sine and cosecant go next to each other. Those are reciprocals. And then cosine and secant, and then tangent and cotangent. Everybody usually remembers those ones. So you just use your picture to answer the questions. Sine would be opposite over hypotenuse. So -2 over square root of 29. For cosecant, you're going to flip that. And then what would cosine be? What over what? Is anyone alive out there? Cosine is what over what? Yeah, good. Perfect. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So -5 over square root of 29. Secant, you're going to flip that. I am right next to the hole in the paper there, so I'm doing my best. All right, and then tangent would be opposite over adjacent. That's -2 over -5. The negatives are going to cancel, so 2 over 5. And then cotangent is 5 over 2. That one was given back in the beginning, though, so if you had that one. All right, and then the only difference between 14 and 15 is one gives you a point and one gives you an equation. What quadrant is -6, 3 in? If you plot your point, -6, 3. Second quadrant. So you're going to draw a triangle in the second quadrant. This is how your delta math was, right? That's how they did these ones. So you got more practice with this type of problem. So -6 is the X, 3 is the Y. And then you have to do the same thing. So do your Pythagorean theorem to get the R value or the hypotenuse. What is that? I'm getting 45. Is that? But square root of 45 will split. So how can you split up 45? Yeah, 9 times 5. So it would be 3 square root of 5. I think what I'll have you do, we'll write out all 6 of them again for this one. And then for number 15, we'll just do the setup. We'll just draw the triangle. I'll finish it and take a picture and put it on Schoology. But I think as long as we do like one more, we'll be okay. Oh my gosh, thank you. I totally forgot to do that. I am so sorry. Thank you. Let me back up to question 13. There's always two you have to go back and fix, and I didn't go back and fix them. Which two are we gonna have to rationalize here? Yeah, sine and cosine. I'm so sorry. It should be -2 square root of 29 over 29. And then -5 square root of 29 over 29. I'm so sorry. I'm off my game today. I did a copy error in calculus too, so. Not enough sleep. I'm sorry. Thank you. We're like out for each other. All right, so sine is gonna be opposite over hypotenuse, so that'll be 3 over 3 square root of 5. The 3's are gonna cancel and it'll be 1 over square root of 5. I will remember to come back and fix that this time, I promise. For cosecant, you're gonna flip that. Now you can write square root of 5 over 1 if you want to, but it would just be square root of 5. All right, cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse, so -6 over 3 square root of 5. And then how can you reduce this part of it? Yeah. Good, -2 over square root of 5. I promise I will remember to come back and fix that one. I will. All right, and then secant, you're just gonna flip it over. Again, the thing that gets people on these is I don't ask for all 6. I'll only ask you for a couple of them. So if that throws you off, write out all 6 and then just pick out the ones I asked you for. All right, and then tangent would be 3 over -6. How is that going to reduce? Because opposite over adjacent, 3 over -6. What is that going to give us? Yep, -1/2. And if you flip that over, -2 over 1 or just -2. All right, so I am going to remember to go back and rationalize these. So sine would be square root of 5 over 5. Cosine would be -2 square root of 5 over 5. I'm going to have to erase and fix that because I ran out of space. You'll have plenty of room on the test. I just tried to conserve paper on the study guide. All right, again, this one, we wrote out all 6 of them here and here. I'll just help you get the triangle set up. I think from there, you'd probably be okay. This time it's given to you as an equation. So you need to come up with a point that is on that line. Now you can plug in anything for X that your heart desires as long as it is what? Bigger than 0. Now you want to be clever about it though. What number would be a good number to plug in for X? 3 is a good choice. Why is that? The denominator's 3 and they'll cancel out. So look, if you plug in 3 for X, the 3's would cancel and you'd be left with -2 minus Y equals 0. And then you would solve that. So what would you do to start solving that to get your Y number? Yeah, you can either add the 2 or add the Y. I would maybe add the Y, because if you do that, you'll be done. So 3 comma -2. So again, I'll just help you get the triangle set up. What quadrant is 3, -2 in? 4th, good. And then you'll do your Pythagorean theorem to get the R value. Did you get square root of 13? Okay. And then you could go and find all the trig functions or whichever ones I asked you for. I'm not going to do all of these either because we're about to play Battleship and we'll practice this. I want to do at least one that's a 3rd, one that's a 4th, one that's a 6th, and one that is a circle one, like a up, down, left, right one. So can you find one that would have a fraction of a 3rd? Do you see one like that? 20. All right, let's do 20. I just want to kind of do one of each. Again, I'm going to take a picture of the completely filled in thing and post it. So you're going to have access to all of those. Oh, I should have asked you, what quadrant is pi over 3 in? I started just doing first. Okay, I started to just do the problem. I want to ask you guys. So first quadrant, and your reference angle is just pi over 3. Do not fight me on this. I will mark it wrong. All I am asking for is a labeled triangle. I am not asking for the world, okay? But the reason you're like, why is she so picky and hateful about this? Because there's hardly any options for the answers, and you could just guess. I want to know that you understand where it came from, all right? What goes across from the pie? Remember, that's the big slice. A third of a pie is a lot of pie. Good. Across from that is square root of 3 over 2. That means this side is a half. Those are the two that go together. That's the work I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a lot, okay? Then you answer the question. It says tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, or y over x, however you want to be thinking about that. So it would look like this, which just kind of trust the process. What's going to happen to that? Yeah. 2's cancel. You get square root of 3 over 1, which just is square root of 3. Right? So that was a third. Can you find one that has a denominator of 4? Let's do a fourth one. 22. Let's go and do 22. I'm just going to do one of each. What quadrant is 5/4 in? You guys are on top of what quadrant we're in. That's going very, very well this year. All right, so your reference angle is pi over 4. That means both sides are what? Good. That's the 45, 45, 90 triangle. So that's why they end up the same. And now we're not in quadrant 1. So something's negative. And yeah, both of them. So that is the amount of work I'm looking for. Then you answer the question. It says cosine. Cosine is what part of this? Yeah, x, or the adjacent part. This didn't really happen so much in here, but I was noticing in my other class, people were writing these along the hypotenuse. I don't ever fill in the hypotenuse, but what is the hypotenuse for every single one of these? 1. If you feel like that's going to throw you off, you can put a 1 on all of them, but don't write this down there, okay? But yes, negative square root of 2 over 2. It's the x value. All right, let's find one that is a 6. Do you see a 6 denominator? 24. All right. What quadrant is 7/6 in? That is the third. 6/6 would be 1 whole pi. 7/6 means you just went a bit further. So 1/6 of a pie is the small slice. So the small side goes across from that. So that would be what? 1/2 goes across. Small side across from small angle. That means the other side is square root of 3 over 2. They just go together. It's the 30, 60, 90 triangle. And then what's negative? Both. Good. All right. That is your work. Now we're doing secant. How do you get secant? I know the cheat sheet's not up there today. I'm sorry, because it's not going to be up there on your test. You flip the x value. Okay. So if you flip this over, it would be negative 2 over square root of 3. And then if you rationalize that, negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. And then can you find one that's the up, down, left, right? 21, good, pi over 2. So instead of a triangle, you get a circle. Where is pi over 2? Up, down, left, or right? Up. And so what is that coordinate? 0, 1. So that is the amount of work that I'm looking for if it's one of those ones. Cotangent is x over y. Now that comes out to 0 over 1. And I know that that fuels an existential crisis there, because it's like, is it 0 or is it undefined? Which do you think? It is 0. When do you end up with an undefined? Divide by 0. Cool. Nice job.